Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new Nancy Drew analysis video. Today's video is brought to you by the patrons over at Mystique Manor and by all the official Fellow Detective channel members. If you too would like to support the channel and gain access to exclusive features, check out patreon.com/wizardkitten to become a patron, or click join next to the subscribe button to become an official fellow detective. After several years making Nancy Drew content, I have covered dozens of highly specific topics related to Nancy Drew. I've reviewed each game individually and explored niche topics like ranking the cooking puzzles, examining character personalities, and ranking the game's cemeteries. What I haven't done is reviewed the series more broadly. I mentioned in each of my individual reviews that the Nancy Drew games are on a pedestal of their own. It is difficult to compare them to other video games because of how unique they are in structure and because of the incredible gap that they fill in the video game landscape. While I can rank them against each other, they're the creme de la creme as a whole. So in today's video, I want to describe what makes the Nancy Drew series as a whole so special, and who should play them. This video will be divided into a few sections. 1. What is the Nancy Drew series? 2. Who should play the Nancy Drew games and why? 3. What makes the Nancy Drew series so special? And 4. How can I get into the games? This review will also be spoiler-free. So first, what is the Nancy Drew series anyway? Most people are familiar with the Nancy Drew books series. Whether they were passed down in your family or you saw them in the library, Nancy Drew has been an iconic detective ever since the 1930s. What makes her unique is that she is a teen girl detective. Most of the most iconic literary and film detectives are adult men, but Nancy provided a role model for girls and women to show that they too can be brave, adventurous, and clever. Her Interactive, the company who makes the Nancy Drew PC games, wanted to celebrate this idea when they started making video games based on the books back in the 90s. The CEO at the time, Megan Geyser, sought to help young girls feel successful and be inspired by Nancy as a character. Her Interactive knew that video games in the early 90s and 2000s were marketed heavily towards boys, but that girls deserved a place in the market as well. So the company started to use the Nancy Drew books as inspiration, and began to create interactive PC games where players could be the famous detective, solving mysteries and growing in confidence one step at a time. There are now 33 Nancy Drew games for players to enjoy, with the 34th game, Mystery of the Seven Keys, currently in development. The very first game, Secrets Can Kill, was released in November of 1998. From roughly 2000 to 2015, Her Interactive released 2 games a year. Production has slowed significantly since 2015 due to company restructuring and game engine changes, but players still have access to the entire series through secondhand physical editions or through digital downloads on online platforms, like Her Interactive's website, Steam, or Big Fish. The games range in price from $9.99 for some of the earliest and shorter titles to $19.99 for most of the newer games, and $21.99 for the most recent release, Midnight in Salem. Each Nancy Drew game is a point-and-click style mystery adventure. Players navigate through artistically rendered environments by clicking through static frames to move from location to location. The games typically include 4 to 5 suspects, with the ultimate goal being to discover whodunit. The entire catalog of games is only available on PC, with some of the later titles available to play on Mac. The gameplay is predominantly made up of a wide variety of puzzles to solve and sections of character dialogue, during which Nancy tries to uncover clues. Now to our second question. Who should play the Nancy Drew games and why? Even though the games are marketed towards a female audience, can boys play them too? Are they appropriate for children? Do they present enough of a challenge to adults? Let's discuss. The Nancy Drew games were designed to provide a gaming option for girls in a landscape predominated by games for boys. What is excellent about the series, though, is that the games have universal appeal and can absolutely be enjoyed by boys as well. By making the games inclusive of young girls, they made them more broadly appealing in general. As such, they are great for all children and adults, regardless of how you identify. The recommended age for most of the Nancy Drew games is 10 to adult, and the majority of the games are rated E for everyone. For the parents out there wondering if the Nancy Drew games are appropriate for your children, the answer is an unequivocal yes. The rating of 10 to adult seems primarily because of the puzzle difficulty, so most children aged 10 or older should be able to solve the mysteries mostly independently. Children younger than 10 can absolutely enjoy the games, though they may need some adult assistance for more difficult puzzles. As far as content, some of the games do include more intense scare factor, like Shadow at the Water's Edge or Ghost of Thornton Hall. If you are sensitive to scare factor, you can check out individual game reviews or even my ranking of the scariest Nancy Drew games to see which ones you may want to avoid or simply play in broad daylight. But what I love about the Nancy Drew series is that they express mystery and adventure without gore or violence. The games have intensity and excitement, but they are in no way graphic, nor do they rely on fighting, weapons, or attacks. Only two of the mysteries, Secrets Can Kill and The Deadly Device, are murder mysteries, and even these games are not violent or gory. The murders take place off-screen and are discussed more vaguely. Additionally, the culprit confrontations are exciting, but still completely harmless. In a world where it can be increasingly difficult to find entertainment appropriate for children, these games are a standout. Beyond the fact that these games are appropriate for children in terms of content, they are also fantastic for child development. Each game includes a broad educational topic, like Maya history and culture in Secret of the Scarlet Hand. The games also include real-life skills, like cooking conversions in Secret of Shadow Ranch or learning to read Roman numerals in Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake. While children are learning actual information, they are also developing critical thinking and problem-solving skills. The Nancy Drew games provide rough guides for what to do next, but in the process of navigating the environments and solving puzzles, players have to make a lot of executive functioning decisions to progress successfully in the game. Finally, the games are also fantastic for building confidence. Nothing made me happier as a little kid than successfully solving a Nancy Drew mystery. These games are perfect for the more sensitive, introverted, or intellectual kiddos because they learn to solve problems in a more controlled and safe environment, which helps them feel more prepared for the real world. But are these games also suitable for adult players? Absolutely! The Nancy Drew games come with two difficulty levels, termed either Junior and Senior Detective or Amateur and Master Sleuth depending on the game. Junior Detective or Amateur Sleuth is great for kids or beginning detectives because it comes with a task list and more in-depth hints. Senior Detective or Master Sleuth is perfect for those who want a challenge because there is no task list and hints are minimal. I have played these games dozens of times each, and there are still some puzzles that can stump me or take me a lot of time, especially on Senior Detective. If you're a parent looking for games for your kids, or you're looking for yourself and want a general idea of which Nancy Drew games are easiest and which are more difficult, check out my video where I rank the games by difficulty. Besides general difficulty being appropriate, the Nancy Drew games are also particularly great for adults because they are a fun, interactive form of mental self-care. They are a great way to disconnect from reality and relax, but they still present a nice little challenge for our brains. They are a more active form of relaxation, but again, they aren't like many other video games on the market because they are slower paced and do not involve violence or dark, gritty storylines. They're fun and engaging, relaxing and cozy, and provide just the right amount of difficulty. Now let's answer the question, why the Nancy Drew games specifically? What makes them so special or unique in a sea of video game options? I've mentioned a few reasons already. They are educational and a great mental challenge for both kids and adults, and they are mystery adventure games for those of us who prefer more cozy, low-intensity gaming. It can sometimes feel like you have two options as a gamer: high-intensity, high-violence first-person shooters or combat games, or cozy indie farming simulators. While I definitely enjoy a cozy indie farming simulator here and there, I also want some adventure and excitement in my gaming without graphic violence or stressful content. The Nancy Drew games land in the middle ground, and there are so few games out there that fill that niche. Another thing that makes the Nancy Drew PC games so special is that they are a massive series. So many games now take multiple years to develop, which means you can find a game that you like and then be stuck with nowhere else to go once you complete it. But through some form of determination and magic, Her Interactive managed to make 33 Nancy Drew games in the same series. This means that once you complete one, you have 32 other titles to choose from, allowing you to continue your adventure as a detective and continue to explore the story. This scratches the same itch as finding a book series that you really enjoy. You aren't limited to a standalone novel. The adventure gets to continue. Finally, it's important to recognize that the Nancy Drew games are pretty simple in terms of gameplay and graphics. After all, the first games in the series were released in the late 90s and early 2000s, so the graphics are pretty stagnant and two-dimensional, and the character movements are pretty robotic. The graphics definitely improve as the series continues, but what I guess I'm trying to emphasize is that gamers who specifically demand high-res, impressive graphics are not going to be impressed. Many gamers may also find the point-and-click movement limiting, given that most games offer significantly more freedom of movement nowadays. However, I still think that these older graphics and gameplay elements carry a lot of charm. They are simple and straightforward, yes, but that also means that the developers spent a lot of time making sure that the stories and characters were given more attention. I also personally think that the Nancy Drew games are absolutely beautiful, and that there is nothing wrong with simplicity and a little bit of imagination. Because the graphics were more simple, I would argue that the developers focused more on the stories, which means that each mystery has fun details that even seasoned detectives may not realize. And finally, how can I get into the Nancy Drew games? If I like what I'm hearing, where should I start? What are great beginner games? What if I'm a seasoned detective who has already played the games, but I'm looking to reignite my interest? Well, I have answers for all of you. As mentioned before, the Nancy Drew games can be purchased as digital downloads from multiple places, including Her Interactive's website, Steam, and Big Fish. You can also find physical editions of the games secondhand. If you are a beginner or a parent purchasing for children, I personally recommend one of the easier games with a great story that fall early on in the series to establish character and help you orient to the game style. I personally think that Message in a Haunted Mansion, Treasure in the Royal Tower, Danger on Deception Island, or Secret of Shadow Ranch are great for beginners. If you're wanting a bigger challenge to start, then I would recommend starting later in the series, with games like Sea of Darkness, Ghost of Thornton Hall, or The Deadly Device. Many fellow detectives will recommend different starting games, so ultimately choose one that sounds interesting to you. They all have great things to offer, so if it relates to you personally, then you're probably in for a fun time. And what about those fellow detectives who have already played the Nancy Drew games and are perhaps returning to the series or wanting to spice up their gameplay? If you haven't played all the games in the series yet, I would start there. Finish any games that you haven't yet played, because there are cookies and references that you may not fully understand if you haven't played every entry in the series. From there, here are some recommended replay ideas. Chronological order. Start with game number 1, Secrets Can Kill, or more likely the remastered version, and make your way to the end in release order. This is always my favorite way to play. Worst to best. Make a list of how you think you'd rank the games from worst to best, then play them in that order. This will help you decide why certain games rank more highly than others and is just a fun adventure, because each game will steadily get better and better. Alphabetical order. Play the series in A to Z order, starting with Alibi and Ashes and ending with White Wolf of Icicle Creek. This adds some randomness to the gameplay, but gives you a consistent structure to follow. Random wheel spinner. Search up a random wheel spinner and add all the games. Simply spin the wheel to see which game you play until you've played them all. Seasonal detective. Organize the games based on season and play them throughout the year during their particular time of year. Some games have more obvious seasons than others, but the less obvious ones can be categorized based on their feel. For example, Labyrinth of Lies has always given me summer vibes, and Danger by Design makes me think of spring. Finally, easiest to hardest. I'll plug my Ranking the Nancy Drew Games by Difficulty video again, but it's a great resource if you want to steadily increase the difficulty of the games for a replay challenge. Start with the easiest and work your way up to the toughest in the series. I'm sure many other fellow detectives have other suggestions for how to replay the games. so feel free to leave some ideas in the comments to inspire your fellow detectives. If any fellow detectives have thoughts on what I have already shared, please also feel free to leave your elaborations in the comments section. But there you have it, fellow detectives, a comprehensive review of the Nancy Drew series for the mystery curious among us. Whether you're new to the series and thinking of giving them a try, considering gifting them to a friend or child, a detective who played the games in childhood and has since forgotten them, or a seasoned detective who still regularly plays the games today, I hope you found this video fun and informative. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover, let me know in the comments section down below. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button or tipping me for the video with a super thanks next to the download button right beneath the video. If you would like to come join a fantastic group of fellow detectives at Mystique Manor as a patron for the channel, gain access to exclusive content, and support the making of more content like this, please check out patreon.com/wizardkitten. I also have channel memberships with exclusive badges and emojis to use during streams and in the comments section. If you'd like to support the channel by becoming an official fellow detective, click join next to the subscribe button. Please feel free to follow the channel on Instagram or Discord, linked in the description box down below. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.